Now, this is a part of the show now where I interview a guest every week, and what can I say? Kind of desk has turned the other way now, because on the other side I'm interviewing a radio presenter, a fellow radio presenter, Paul Kazam. Welcome to the Danny Sun Presents feature.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How's yourself?
Yeah, I'm really well. Thank you very much.
That's good. Great to hear it. And Paul Kazam, obviously, is a very show-busy surname. Is that your real name, or is it?
It's not. No, it's not. It's not my real name. It's transpired from my normal profession. That's of normally when we're not in lockdown and we're not sort of going through the pandemic that we're going through at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm actually a family comedy entertainer.
Yeah.
Magician and stuff, and that's where the name transpired.
Yeah.
A few years ago, somebody said, you need a name, and Kazam was born.
Yeah.
So it's just followed me through into the radio, really.
Yeah, okie dokie. And so most DJs have aliases. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And I detect a kind of southern accent. Where did you grow up?
I'm an Essex boy. I am an Essex boy. I will hold my hand up. I am the one. Born and bred in Essex.
Yeah.
Just outside London. We lived in I grew up in Basildon.
Yeah.
The home of Depeche Mode and Alice Moyet and a few others.
Yeah.
And then moved to Leon C later on, and then moved elsewhere, sort of totally out of Essex.
Yeah. Okay, and Basildon, obviously you mentioned Depeche Mode, and obviously Yazoo come out of Basildon. It's a new town, isn't it? A bit like Peterborough, Redditch, Telford, Welwyn Garden City.
It is, yeah. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, Dan, I don't remember it prior to it not being a new town. As you know, I've always known it as Basildon, New Town.
Yeah. And did it have a reputation in the 80s, Basildon?
What sort of reputation are you talking about here?
I'm not sure, really. Just on the whole, really.
It was a typical Essex. I've got to be very careful here because I really don't want to be stereotypical. But Basildon was a typical Essex town.
Yeah. And Depeche Mode, they first come to the scene at Crocs, which I believe was a nightclub in Basildon, where they actually had a crocodile in the club, in the venue.
That's before my time, Dan.
Okay.
You've taught me something there.
Yeah.
That is one of the nightclubs. I remember there being 3 nightclubs in Basildon before the big festival leisure park that we built.
Yes.
Which was sort of 90s, late 80s, early 90s. But there was 3. Crocs is not one I remember. There was Raquel's, was the big one, and then there was another one called Sweeney's, which was a very tiny nightclub, and you had to go up sort of a set of escalators to get to it, and then just on the outskirts of the town centre itself, you had another club called Time. And when Time opened, that was amazing because they had, real up-to-date sound system, lasers, lighting, everything. It really was sort of, wow, place like this has come to Basildon.
Yeah. And so a bit about where you're from, your background, and before you become radio presenter, were you doing like kids parties, kids road shows, and what do you miss about them at the moment?
Yeah, it's I was doing a lot of children's parties, birthdays, magic, that sort of thing. It's entertaining the kids, and the joy. And the feedback that you get from the kids as well is just great fun.
Yeah.
It is very, very difficult to try and explain to somebody. But there is a buzz about it.
Yep. And obviously your Drive Time show is an 80s themed show. Why did you choose this era specifically?
I love the 80s. I love the 80s. Before the 80s Drive Time was born, I was doing because I love the 80s and 90s music anyway, and I was doing an 80s and 90s club classic show on the radio. And then I got asked to do a chart show, so the 80s chart show was born, and from that I got asked to do Drive Time, and the 80s Drive Time was born. Yeah. I was not comfortable. I'll be honest. I tried to do a current Drive Time, and I just wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
So I said, if I'm going to do Drive Time, it's got to be on my terms, and it's got to be 80s.
Yeah, that's fine. And what do you like most about being a Drive Time radio presenter, and not so much about your role?
The reaction, or the sorry, not the reaction. That's the wrong word. The interaction.
Yeah.
With the listeners. We do a lot of features on the Drive show where the listeners can actually interact.
Yeah.
And and that's great, knowing that you've got the listeners there. You're not just playing to yourself. And they do send you great feedback.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's entertaining, and especially in this time, the radio, irrespective of what show, but I feel during this moment and this current pandemic we're going through, the radio is a lifeline for a lot of people.
Yep, they say it's a good medium, don't they?
Yeah, definitely,
yeah.
definitely.
And you mentioned interaction as well, and I myself always kind of at you for requests you take from the listeners. How important is it if a DJ to accept requests? It's kind of gives them inspiration when their brain kind of just goes null.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we put a show together, prior to it going out. We work a playlist out, just in case, obviously, you don't get any requests. But when the requests start coming in, it also tells you what sort of music that your listeners like.
Mm-hmm.
So, and obviously the 80s is such a wide music genre. Sort of from the early 80s, sort of the early, cheesy disco stuff up to, just as it started late 80s, started to get a little bit more clubby, sort of ready for the 90s.
Yeah.
So the genre in that decade is amazing. The complete or the range of the genre, I should say.
There are lots of different styles, then, as you say.
Yes.
Yeah, and you might need a second to think about this. What's the most bizarre thing? What has happened to you live on air?
I think it's when I broke my chair.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I think that's probably the most actually live on air. I popped out of the studio for a second to grab a drink or something, and there was a track playing, and I was mucking about and dancing around in the studio, and realised the track was finishing. As I jumped into the chair, I'd sort of tripped as well, and then ended up on my back.
Oh goodness! You weren't trying to break dance, were you?
But that was a that sort of but that created a bit of a story, and that story went on for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I think on today's show, went to do the weather and played the news instead. But it's live radio. You press the wrong button. It's fun.
You also have touching moments as well, where people have email in and say it's their anniversary, or they got married on this day such and such not so long ago, which is quite nice to hear. People still together, and when someone makes a dedication to a loved one, that must be nice.
It is, it is, and it's you're part of their special day as well. you know, they've sort of taken the time out to email or message or whatever, ask you to play a song for them for their anniversary or their special day. So it's nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. So coming to the end of the interview now, but before I wrap up, do you have to have good geographical knowledge to be a drive time host? Like, do you have to know your Wolverhamptons from your Wolvertons, or or your Bognor Regises from your Rowley Regises, or your Staffords from your Stratfords?
All I'm going to say to that question, Dan, is my pronunciation is well known for being. It needs to be. My pronunciation of place names leaves a lot to be desired. Put it that way.
Yeah, there are some obscure towns and cities out there. When you look at them, like, how's that pronounced? You think.
Exactly. And I will be honest. I have got messages from listeners where they've actually sent me recordings, sort of it via a message, of them actually saying the place names.
Yeah.
And even now, I see the name come up, and I think, oh, I better play that message in my head before I pronounce it.
Yeah.
But it's, again, that's interaction with the listeners. You know, they find it funny. They're not offended by it. And they must hear that their village is pronounced wrongly every day.
Yeah, quite. Right, so I'm just going to finish you off now, and you always take requests, so I reckon you should pick a song. And since it's February and Valentine's Day's in February, I've narrowed 5 80s kind of ballads, love songs, and you have to pick out of the 4 or 5 ones. I have Styx, Babe. The Lady in Red by Chris de Burgh. Endless Love, Diana Ross, Lana Ritchie. Foreigner, I Want to Know What Love Is. Or you could go cheesy with I Just Called to Say I Love You.
Oh, Dan, you have really put me on the spot. You've got 5 absolute classics.
And you can only pick one.
And I can only pick one. Yeah. Well, okay, I'm going to narrow it down between Foreigner and Styx.
Yeah.
And I think I will go, because it doesn't get as much airplay as it should do, I'll go with Styx.
Okay, great stuff. Well, Paul Kazam, 80s Drive Time presenter. Thanks for chatting to me, Dennison, on today's feature. And it's great to hear a great show.
Great, Dan. Thank you ever so much. And it's felt really weird being the other side.
It does. It does feel that way, doesn't it? Sometimes I've been there myself.
It does.
Okay.
But it's great. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Dan.
Right.
As always.
Wonderful.